Don't leave the TV on, and either turn off the lights in the living room or your room.
Got it. I'll make sure to save electricity.
I left the house to go shopping far away. Whether leaving or staying at home, we as a family are committed to saving energy, like remembering to turn off lights and setting the air conditioner to the right temperature. Today, like always, we reminded each other in the family, and I went out. However, a few hours later when I returned, our dear home had completely changed. Since you love saving so much, I'll save electricity for you. The sound that echoed maliciously was Amelia's laughter. Amelia, who sneaked in secretly, had turned off our home's breaker, causing a major problem. The reason she did this? My name is Emma. At 29, I married Liam, my same-aged partner, and moved into my in-laws' house. My mother-in-law had already passed away, and my father-in-law, James, who has a respiratory illness, was living alone. Persuaded by my concerned husband, I started living there while continuing my job. In the in-laws' house, there was also the unmarried Amelia, but we never really got along. James is calm and kind, much like my husband. In contrast, his sister Amelia is temperamental and volatile. Being straightforward, I often clashed with her, and being a few years older, I was somehow managing to keep her in check. Excluding her, it was a peaceful life. But within half a year, James's illness worsened. He needed an oxygen machine even to stay at home. Both Amelia and I were working, so there was no one to help James during the day. We should have arranged for him to live in a care facility, but James refused to leave the house filled with memories of his wife. Consulting with my husband, we concluded it would be cruel to force James to move. So, we hired a caregiver, but that led to more problems. Already not getting along with me, Amelia disliked strangers entering her home and started harassing the caregiver. Invisibly to us, she was abusive and sarcastic, obstructing the work, and repeatedly complained to the agency, saying they couldn't be trusted with her father. By the time we realized the cause, multiple caregivers had quit. And the agency told us they couldn't send anyone new. What do we do now? Other agencies have refused us too. We must be blacklisted, damn it, all because of Amelia. Known as a troublesome household, we could no longer hope for a caregiver. We had to think of a solution with a sigh. Amelia, always self-centered, had isolated herself from the family. My husband, as her brother, tried to correct her, but it only led to fierce arguments, and he eventually told her to move out and live independently. But Amelia, angered by such reprimands, started complaining to me, as I was less intimidating than her brother. You're a daughter-in-law now, so you should take care of him, Emma. Liam can't quit his job, being a man, but you're different. Overheard by my husband, this sparked another argument. This situation didn't allow James to rest and recover peacefully. I didn't want to give in to Amelia's demands, but I couldn't just stand by either. Feeling indebted to James, who had tried to make me feel at home despite his illness, I decided, I'll quit my job and take care of James. I'll start learning about caregiving bit by bit. After all, James is family to me too. When I finally decided to resign for caregiving, James and my husband thanked me with tears. It was a real challenge learning about caregiving from scratch, but James always kindly encouraged me, despite my struggles. The only thing that didn't change was Amelia. She neither moved out nor helped with the housework or caregiving. On her days off, she would disappear, presumably to hang out. Even though I had more time, I was busy with James and studying for caregiving. My husband and I shared household chores, but whenever something was missed, Amelia was quick to complain. Oh, Emma decided to take on both caregiving and housework, right? You like doing everything yourself, don't you? If I even slightly talked back, she would retaliate unpleasantly. She kept harassing me like this, but was always found out and scolded by my husband and others. Every time, she would play the victim, saying, "James is too kind to say anything, so I'm doing it for him." Naturally, things didn't improve, and her constant interference slowed down my household tasks, quickly piling up stress. I'm truly grateful to the caregivers who managed to smile and care for James despite her meddling. Not just me, but James and the others were fed up with Amelia's persistent attitude. However, one day, while my husband and I were secretly discussing how to encourage her independence, she announced,
"I got engaged and I'm moving out. Goodbye, Dad. I'll come back to visit sometimes."
With that, Amelia left the house obediently. We were surprised, but with her stormy presence gone, the house's atmosphere stabilized. James was aging and his condition was a concern, so there were talks of moving him to a care facility, but as I got accustomed to caregiving, we decided to continue with home care. Amelia, now living at her fiancé's place, often returned home.
"I bet there'll be leftovers from dinner tonight. Put them in a Tupperware, I'll take them with me."
Apparently, she was relying on our leftovers to avoid cooking for her fiancé. Her selfishness remained, treating me like a housemaid as before.
"Amelia, don't order Emma around without helping yourself."
Yeah, sorry Emma.
"That's enough, right?
Hurry up with the dinner." Even when scolded by James, she would dismiss it with an indifferent attitude. Honestly, the amount of food I had to prepare didn't change much from before she left, so that wasn't really an issue. Rather, the problem was the food and utility costs. Although Amelia had moved out and stopped contributing financially, her frequent returns and unrestrained behavior strained our budget. Moreover, she had no sense of saving electricity or money.
"Amelia, turn off the lights in unused rooms. Can I go ahead if you're not using the shower?"
Amelia, lying on the couch with her back to the still-on TV, seemed to be playing games on her mobile phone. She had left the lights on in the bathroom and changing room, indicating she'd take a shower, but showed no signs of moving. The unnecessary electricity use and her lingering were holding everyone back. When I asked her to decide between gaming or showering, Amelia glared at me angrily.
"Don't tell me what to do. I was just about to go. You always nag about saving and cutting costs, but it hardly makes a difference."
"You're so petty, Auntie."
"What did you just call me?"
"I called you Emma. Don't pretend you heard wrong and get mad," she retorted, even as James scolded her. While saying this, Amelia finally turned off the TV and headed to the changing room. She always complained, but at least she listened to what was said. However, having worked for years and having a fiancé, her mindset remained that of a rebellious child. I had stopped expecting her to act her age. Though I didn't mind it, our relationship with Amelia didn't improve even after she left home, remaining tense. I had hoped that saving money could be a common ground for our family, but that too seemed unlikely. One day, I was driving to a large shopping mall in the suburbs, away from home. I was running an errand for James. James wasn't unable to go out, but he needed to carry a portable oxygen tank when he did. For the elderly James, carrying the heavy tank, even with a carrier, was burdensome, and the visible tubes made it obvious he was on oxygen therapy. Tired of being pitted by acquaintances saying, "Poor thing," each time they saw him, James preferred staying home. There were often errands, but my husband usually handled them when he was home. Being careful not to leave James alone, this time I had no choice but to leave him for the errand. I was worried, but James wasn't helpless. He only needed the tank for breathing. He was still capable of doing quite a bit by himself. While it's important to be mindful of saving electricity, I asked him to use the air conditioning as needed, and I set off for shopping. I completed the shopping without issues and returned home with the groceries a few hours later. I had left in the late morning, but now it was evening. Before entering the house, I picked up my mobile phone. There might be a message from my husband about dinner. However, what I saw on the screen shocked me. Huh? There were numerous missed calls. From my husband, James, and the general hospital where James goes. A cold sweat broke out on my back. While driving, I had switched my phone to a mode that wouldn't ring. And in my rush to get home early today, I forgot to switch it back, unaware of the incoming calls. A sense of foreboding crossed my mind. First, I tried calling back my husband, but the phone just kept ringing without connecting. Growing more anxious, I then tried James's number, but there was no answer. As a last hope, I called the hospital. A receptionist answered, and trying to stay composed, I asked about James. James is currently hospitalized. I can't provide more details over the phone. Could you please come to the hospital? After being transferred to several departments, I was informed of this and froze. I quickly replied, "I'm on my way," and hurriedly turned the car key, restarting the engine. The car was filled with urgency. As if reflecting my anxiety, the roads were congested. James had been fine when I left, waving goodbye as usual. I regretted leaving him alone, wondering how he could have been hospitalized so suddenly. Arriving at the hospital, I headed to the directed room. Walking down the tense corridor, I quietly opened the door, and there sat my husband, who had been unreachable. We looked at each other in surprise. But he explained that he was at the hospital waiting for James's tests. Which is why he couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't answer the phone either, I'm sorry. That's okay. So, how is James doing? He prompted me to look at James, who was sleeping in the bed. His complexion seemed a bit off, but his breathing, which I had been worried about, appeared calm. He's okay. There's no problem with his condition. He's just here for some tests. Actually, hearing from my husband that James was not in danger, I finally relaxed. But why was James hospitalized? Just as I was about to ask that question, the door to the room burst open. It was Amelia, rushing in, her eyes filled with fear. She ignored us and ran straight to James's bed. Seeing him lying there, she let out a loud scream. "What happened? Dad!" Her voice was so loud that my husband hurried to calm her down. But her frantic voice echoed through the room. "Please calm down!" My husband tried to pull her away from the bed. Her frightened voice eventually quietened down, but then she suddenly glared at me and started yelling with intense emotion. "What were you doing while you were with him?" I was overwhelmed by her anger and lost for words. My husband intervened to calm her, but her anger was still directed at me. Confused, I was caught in a strange sensation. James needed oxygen, but such a sudden hospitalization seemed unlikely. "Wait, can we talk calmly?" My husband turned to us with a calm voice, explaining what he knew. James was transported here because the power to his oxygen device had turned off. After I left, James had been sleeping in his room, but during that time, the power went off. Awoken by breathlessness and trying to turn the device back on, it wouldn't work, and he couldn't reach me or my husband. James connected a portable tank and managed to calm down, but he was anxious about waiting for us to return. Feeling a headache, James decided to go to the hospital, but we usually drive him, so he had no way to get there. He tried to call a taxi, but his hands were trembling, making it difficult to dial. So, James went to ask the neighbors to call a taxi for him. The neighbor who came out to the entrance screamed upon seeing James. He was taken to the living room, laid down, and cooled with ice packs while waiting for the ambulance. That's when James realized he had gotten heat stroke. After that, thanks to the appropriate treatment at the hospital, James's condition stabilized and he was safe. My husband heard from the doctor that James might not have noticed the heat due to his age, and he thought the trembling hands and headache were just symptoms of aging. Because James had convulsions, he was immediately treated and hospitalized for testing, leading to the current situation. After hearing this explanation from my husband, I asked him a daring question.
It's unlikely that the power source for the device wouldn't work. Didn't we install it in a place where the plug couldn't be accidentally pulled out?
My husband furrowed his brow and seemed deep in thought. Amelia remained silent during this time, but her face was visibly pale.
That's right. It's impossible for it to come unplugged on its own. I went back home to check, and the plug wasn't out.
Then how? I was even more confused by my husband's words. He had returned home to prepare for the hospital stay, and found that although the power was off, the plug was still connected. He then looked sternly at Amelia. It was clear she was hiding something, but I couldn't understand why he was so angry. Suddenly, my husband shouted at Amelia.
You cut off the breaker, didn't you? Say something.
Amelia jolted, beginning to tremble. She tried to say something, but only inaudible sounds came out. Then, my husband pulled something out of his pocket. The hospital had tried to contact me, my husband, and Amelia several times, but my husband was the first to get through. When he returned home for the preparations, he immediately sensed something odd. As soon as he opened the door, a wave of incredible heat hit him. The lights in the entrance hall didn't work. Realizing this, he checked around the house and found all electrical appliances were off. He rushed to check the breaker, and as expected, the switch was turned off. Surprised and suspicious, he wondered why this happened. There was no event like a lightning strike to cause the breaker to trip, and no other houses seemed to be affected by a power outage. However, he then remembered something. Our house had several security cameras installed. Before we got married, a burglar had broken into the house, and James had installed them for my mother-in-law's peace of mind. Even though we were saving money, these were kept for everyone's safety, and we weren't allowed to remove them.
Footage up until the power outage should still be there,
my husband thought, so he quickly restored the power and checked the recordings.
I have the footage here. I transferred it to show both of you.
In the hospital room, my husband took out his mobile phone. He showed us the transferred footage. The first thing shown was the familiar view of our house's entrance. A few minutes after I left, Amelia appeared. I was surprised to learn she had come to the house and involuntarily glanced at her. She entered the house using her key. Unlike her usual noise, she looked around suspiciously, almost as if she was checking if I was away. My husband then switched to the footage from a camera inside the entrance. The breaker in our house is located near the ceiling above the shoe rack. Amelia climbed onto a chair meant for wearing shoes and opened the breaker's cover.
What are you doing?
Even though I knew what was coming, I couldn't suppress my scream. The camera had sound recognition, so along with the movement noises, her dreadful whispering was recorded.
This is the breaker, right? If the fridge stops, Emma will calm down a bit.
Her malicious laughter echoed in the silent hospital room.
I'll save electricity for you, your favorite.
After that, the footage ended due to her turning off the breaker. We were all speechless and motionless. If the breaker was off, of course, the whole house's power supply would stop. The contents of the fridge must have spoiled in the hours before my husband noticed. Her frantic behavior when she rushed into the hospital room suggested she hadn't realized her actions could endanger James's life, a very malicious way to punish me. However, her reaction was unbelievable.
It's because you're always nagging about saving electricity.
Without any signs of remorse, and with tears in her eyes, Amelia started justifying herself.
I didn't know James was home. I thought he had gone out with you. It's your fault for leaving him behind.
She kept repeating, I had no idea this would happen. Contrasting her tearful self-defense, I was filled with anger.
Breaking in like a thief and turning off the breaker, it's a miracle he survived. What if something had happened to Dad?
I couldn't help but blame Amelia, but she shouted back at me in defense.
But it's your fault. It's because of you that James is in this situation.
Her accusations pierced my heart. Indeed, I shouldn't have left James alone. Was it my mistake to leave him, thinking going far would be a burden? The tension in the hospital room was palpable, then suddenly broken.
Be quiet.
James, who was supposed to be sleeping, scolded her sternly. He couldn't raise his voice much due to his illness. Being inherently calm, his outburst surprised us all. All three of us turned to him in unison.
Do you realize what you have done? You've caused trouble for everyone and nearly killed me. Emma is not to blame.
James's eyes were filled with anger and disappointment. His tone was stern, unlike his usual gentle demeanor. Awakened by Amelia's screaming and commotion, he had heard everything, including the surveillance camera discussion.
If you're going to continue making noise, leave. And don't come back to the house ever again.
Scolded harshly, Amelia turned pale and froze, but soon began to cry loudly, which was very disturbing. She apologized to James, but he insisted she leave, and my husband escorted her out of the room. James was discharged just a few days later. When we went to the hospital to pick him up, he greeted us with a smile, seemingly recovered. However, upon returning home, Amelia was waiting at the front door. She hadn't shown up in front of us since that incident. We were expecting an apology, but her words were the same as before.
It's your fault. It's all because of you that James ended up like this.
James and my husband were exasperated. Unwilling to admit fault and still blaming me, James stepped forward.
Be thankful I'm not reporting you to the police because you're family. Your actions are absolutely unforgivable.
His cold voice in the hospital room hadn't changed, and she fell silent. But James didn't stop there. He seemed to despise her from the bottom of his heart.
It's disownment. I can't believe you still don't realize the severity of what you've done. Don't come to our house again. I went to the hospital, but I won't attend your wedding either.
He spoke harshly, pushed Amelia aside, and entered the house vigorously. She was probably not expecting to be disowned by her own father, and stood there in shock. We decided to stand by James and support him. So, we entered the house, leaving her behind. Amelia repeatedly tried to apologize afterwards, but James ignored all her attempts. Having been troubled by her too much, we had no sympathy and upheld his decision. James had been asked to financially support Amelia's wedding and honeymoon, but he refused all requests and declared he wouldn't attend the wedding. One day, Amelia ambushed me outside the house. She desperately apologized and begged me to persuade James, but I had already decided not to forgive her. Knowing she would persist if ignored, I quietly listened to her before leaving her there and walking away. This series of events eventually became known to Amelia's fiancé. James had refused to attend the wedding for safety reasons, which puzzled her fiancé, prompting him to contact James. Unaware of the full story, her fiancé was shocked to hear about the emergency caused by Amelia and hurriedly apologized to James. The fiancé, unlike Amelia, seemed to have reasonable judgment. Calling her actions attempted murder, the wedding was eventually called off. They hadn't moved into their new home yet, but the fiancé canceled it and kicked Amelia out. Having already quit her job and spent her savings on beauty treatments in preparation for the wedding, she was left nearly broke, with the wedding cancellation costs to bear. She fell into debt but didn't show up at our doorstep. Meanwhile, the three of us were living peacefully. Without Amelia's disruptive presence, James's health seemed to be improving. Though we couldn't be complacent due to his age, a care facility seemed unnecessary for now. We were even planning a trip.
The crying kids and the wife who doesn't do housework are just in the way.
Upon returning home from visiting her parents, Emery was greeted by these unbelievable harsh words from her brother-in-law, Mark. To make matters worse, Mark left Emery and her child behind at our house and went back alone. The worst. Was Mark always hiding his true nature? The action I took, shaking with anger. My name is Violet. I retired last year after working for many years. I have a daughter named Emery. When Emery was 5 years old, her father fell ill and passed away. Since then, I've raised Emery with all my love, by myself. Emery has always been a kind child. She sometimes felt lonely without her father, but grew up to be a bright and honest good child. At the age of 25, Emery married a man named Mark and became a housewife. Emery and her family live in an apartment an hour away by train from my house. One day, I received a call from Emery.
Mom, I'm pregnant.
I was overjoyed to hear about Emery's pregnancy.
That's wonderful. How are you feeling? If there's anything I can do, just let me know. Congratulations,
I said, offering my blessings. Imagining a bright future, I even started thinking about passing on my house to Emery and her family someday. Hoping for the health of both mother and child, I spent my days looking forward to the birth of a healthy baby boy. Emery decided to come back home for about a month with her son after giving birth, and I did everything I could to support Emery so she could rest a bit. Bathing, changing diapers, feeding milk. Taking care of a baby after so long was challenging but fulfilling, and most importantly, my grandson was so adorable that I was motivated to do anything. Emery tried to do as much as she could on her own, but I always told her not to overdo it postpartum. Thinking of Emery's health, I prepared nutritious meals.
Mom, thank you so much. This really helps,
Emery would always say, expressing her gratitude. I was enjoying life with Emery and my grandson, but one thing bothered me. Emery's husband, Mark, hardly ever came to our house. I thought it was normal for a husband to come and see his wife and child. 2 weeks later, Mark finally came to our house. However, he barely exchanged a few words with Emery and didn't even bother to look at the baby sleeping in the crib on his own. Emery picked up the baby to show him, but Mark showed little interest. I suggested to Mark,
"Why don't you stay over tonight?"
But Mark declined, saying, "No, I'm busy with work, so I'll pass," and left soon after. I felt uneasy about Mark's indifferent behavior, showing no affection for the baby or consideration for Emery, but I continued to support Emery and take care of my grandchild with dedication. After that, Mark never showed his face again. A month flew by, and it was time for Emery and my grandson to return home. Feeling lonely again, I hoped the family of 3 would support each other. Even though Mark had a lukewarm response when he visited, living with the baby might gradually nurture his paternal instincts. Maybe he only came once because he was really busy with work. Convincing myself of this, I hoped for Emery's happiness. But a week later, when I noticed noise at the front door, I found Emery, my grandson, and Mark. Emery looked pale and worn out. Mark was saying to Emery,
"The crying kid and you, not doing housework, are both in the way. Stay at your parents' house for a while."
I was shocked into silence. Noticing me, Mark lazily said,
Violet, please take care of the kid for a while. I'm leaving Emery here too."
Violet,
please take care of the kid for a while. I'm leaving Emery here too.
And tried to leave. I was about to yell at Mark, but held back when I saw Emery tightly holding the baby.
Yes, that's fine.
My voice was strained, but Mark, seemingly indifferent, said,
I'll come to pick them up eventually.
And left without a second glance at Emery or the baby. After inviting Emery and the baby inside and asking what happened, Emery suddenly started crying. Comforting her, I was stunned by what she finally managed to say.
Mom, Mark says he's bothered by me and the baby.
Upon asking for details, it turned out Mark would rage about the baby's crying and his inability to work from home. Mark's company allows him to work from home a couple of days a week. He also berated Emery, believing extreme articles online about perfect parenting and housekeeping during maternity, or unrealistic knowledge about pregnancy and childbirth.
Why is the house such a mess? There are dishes piling up. Don't use childcare as an excuse for your laziness.
He criticized Emery for neglecting housework due to childcare, despite not helping at all. Finally, he left Emery and the baby at our doorstep, saying,
The crying kid and the wife who doesn't do housework are just in the way. Take care of them at your parents' house for a while.
And went back alone. After hearing Emery's story, I felt a surge of anger and immediately contacted Mark's parents. When I told them about Mark's treatment of Emery, they said,
Well, but please understand Mark's feelings. It's unpleasant if a house is messy.
I was speechless with astonishment. They even said,
We wish Emery would be more considerate of Mark.
To which I calmly replied,
It's ridiculous to put all the burden on Emery without helping with childcare or housework.
I continued to lecture them. Eventually, Mark's parents seemed to understand what I was saying. When I called Mark himself and lectured him,
You're always complaining to Emery, but have you ever changed the baby's diaper or fed him milk even once? As a married couple, you need to cooperate.
Mark wouldn't listen. Instead, he said,
Speaking of which, Violet, you mentioned before about giving us your house. When will that be?
Completely ignoring Emery and the baby to inquire about the house. He said in a frivolous tone,
Our current apartment is too small, so I really want to move into your larger house soon.
Aghast, I replied,
I'll hand it over once you come to properly take Emery and the baby and can live together as a family.
And hung up the phone. Was Mark always like this? I feel so sorry for Emery. Mark seemed like a perfect gentleman during family meetings, but I'm shocked he was hiding his true nature. Emery must have only seen the good in Mark when deciding to marry him. It's no exaggeration to say she was deceived. For now, I must protect them until Mark properly comes to pick them up. And so, our life together, with me, Emery, and my grandson, began. Emery gradually regained her spirits, and my grandson grew up healthily. 7 months later, when Mark finally came to pick them up, he was stunned to see our house.
What the? Why is everything gone?
The site was cleared. In a panic, Mark called Emery.
On the phone, Mark yelled, Hey! Why is the house gone? What happened to the promise of giving us the house? And where are you guys now?
To this, Emery calmly demanded a divorce, saying,
You finally showed up? It's too late. The child, Mom, and I have moved.
Let's get a divorce. Actually, since Mark didn't come to pick them up for a long time, I sold the house and cleared the land. If he had come sooner and sincerely apologized to Emery, things might have been different, but since there was no sign of that, I decided to sell the property. By then, Emery had already resolved to divorce Mark. I hadn't expected him to come after 7 months. During this time, we managed to find a strong lawyer for the divorce and a new place to live with the money from the sale of the house, so maybe the timing was right in a way. But it was way too late. What did he think of Emery and our grandson? Mark screamed.
Divorce. Why would it come to that? I will never agree to it. Tell me where you've moved to, I'll come.
But Emery responded,
I will never tell you. I'll send the divorce papers by mail, please sign them.
And hung up the phone. We didn't move to a neighboring city but to a distant one, buying a spacious apartment with the money from the house sale. With a large park nearby and supermarkets and drugstores within walking distance, it's a great location for raising a child. Emery and I are completely satisfied with our new apartment, enjoying a relaxed life of parenting. Mark often called afterward, only saying,
I will never agree to a divorce.
Emery reiterated her request for a divorce, saying,
If you could ignore us for 7 months, we must not be needed. Please come to terms with it and agree to the divorce.
But Mark threatened,
Do you plan on taking away my parents' first grandchild?
However, Emery informed him,
Your parents have been visiting regularly, so they're well aware of the child's growth.
Actually, after I lectured them over the phone, Mark's parents changed their minds, apologized to us, and even came to our doorstep to offer a deep apology for their rudeness. They repeatedly tried to persuade Mark to pick up Emery and the child, but he refused to listen. They disowned Mark, saying,
A person like that is no son of ours,
and urged him to agree to the divorce quickly. Mark panicked.
Why are you suddenly saying this? Dad, Mom, that's terrible.
They cut him off.
You had 7 months. We're severing ties with you as parents.
Emery coldly told Mark,
Your parents have disowned you, haven't they? I also want to sever ties with you as soon as possible through divorce.
Disowned by his own parents and abandoned by his wife, Mark finally conceded to the divorce. Regarding custody, although Mark said,
I want the custody,
Emery countered.
I want the custody.
Emery countered.
You've never even changed a diaper. What are you talking about?
Naturally, Emery was granted custody. Mark ended up paying child support in a lump sum, and the divorce was finalized. Initially, Mark wanted to pay child support in installments, but Emery insisted on a lump sum, not trusting him, so Mark reluctantly agreed. This left Mark almost broke, leading to a life of poverty after paying child support in one go. Thinking that remarrying Emery would bring back the child support, Mark began frequently demanding to remarry.
Emery, I'm really sorry. I won't blame you anymore. I can even tolerate a bit of mess and change diapers occasionally. Let's remarry.
Mark said ridiculously, but Emery replied,
You still don't understand what you did wrong. I don't see any willingness to cooperate. Anyway, even if you changed now, I would never remarry you.
Mark still hadn't grasped the concept of cooperating on childcare and housework as a couple, continuing to make irrelevant remarks. Emery said,
Since I've already received the child support, there's no need for us to communicate anymore.
I'm blocking you.
Goodbye.
And blocked Mark. Both I and Mark's parents also blocked him. Emery expressed relief.
I feel so refreshed. It's a liberating feeling.
Later, when Mark found it difficult to pay his apartment rent and return to his parents' home, he discovered it was for sale. Standing in front of the now empty lot, he muttered,
You've got to be kidding. Did Dad and Mom sell the house too?
Having lost his home, Mark was at a loss and reluctantly returned to his apartment, leading a lonely and impoverished life. Soon, whispers and rumors about him began to spread among the neighbors. The word was that he had driven away his wife and child with his selfish behavior, and even his own parents had disowned him. Since Emery was well liked by the neighbors, they looked down on Mark, saying,
To treat such a wonderful DIL so terribly.
Even going to the convenience store near his house became a challenge for Mark, as he was conscious of people's stares, resorting to sneaking out late at night. Moreover, news of Mark's misconduct had spread at his workplace, resulting in cold treatment from everyone. Mark had a tendency to arrogantly believe everything he read online, and he wasn't very popular at work to begin with. This incident further lowered Mark's standing at work, and he was even lectured directly by a senior female colleague with experience in child-rearing. As a result, Mark found no peace either at work or home, leading a life of discomfort. Stress led him to gambling, starting with a casual visit to a pachinko parlor, eventually spiraling into a life of debt. His gambling addiction led to a nocturnal lifestyle, resulting in unauthorized absences and napping during work hours, until he was finally fired. Evicted from his apartment, Mark was forced to move to a cheap, run-down property. Unable to secure stable employment, he scraped by with day labor. His gambling continued unabated, and his debt only grew larger. Despite everything, Mark never considered his own actions to blame, ranting into the night.
"Why do I have to suffer like this? Damn it all!"
His loud complaints resulted in complaints from neighbors and even attention from the police, showing no sign of redemption. Meanwhile, I thoroughly enjoy living with Emery and my grandson, occasionally having tea with Mark's parents, maintaining a good relationship. Mark's parents moved about 30 minutes away by car, and have completely cut ties with him, determined never to help him again, no matter what. They have no intention of telling him their new address. My grandson is soon turning 1. We plan to celebrate his first birthday grandly with Emery and Mark's parents. Though he lacks a father, Emery, I, and all of us together plan to give him all the love we can. Emery has grown stronger both as a mother and as a woman, currently in the midst of job hunting. She's more vibrant and radiant than ever. I look forward to supporting Emery and witnessing my grandson's growth. Pack my stuff too and make sure you handle it with care. Naturally, I'll be taking the biggest room, Vincent declared as the moving day to our new home approached. My husband Kendrick and I were busy with preparations for the move. It was during this time that Vincent, Kendrick's unemployed brother who lives with us, insisted we pack and transport his belongings as well. "That house is perfect for someone elite like me, so I'll be coming along," he added. My name is Rachel, a 29-year-old working mother with a job in medical administration. Kendrick, also 29, is a salaried employee. Despite our busy schedules, we manage to divide household chores. I take care of meals and laundry, while Kendrick handles cleaning. We enjoy a close relationship, spending our weekends traveling and leading a fulfilling life together. One day, Kendrick received a call from his friend Tarek. "I've decided to start a new company. You were interested in this industry, right? After giving it some thought, I realized I need your skills. Please, join me in this venture," Tarek passionately pitched. After some contemplation, considering Kendrick had shown interest in this field before his current job, I encouraged him to accept Tarek's offer, which he did. Tarek lives in a location far from where we currently reside, prompting us to decide on moving to work together. Tarek's father, a successful businessman, caught wind of our situation and generously offered to prepare a home for Kendrick and me. The house, with its trendy design and sophisticated interior, excited both of us. 2 months before the move, we received a call from Kendrick's mother, Cordelia, about his father, Taylor, who had been hospitalized following an accident. It seems Taylor will have lasting effects from his injuries and will need to move into a care facility, but there's no immediate availability. He can be admitted by the end of next month, so could you help support Taylor until then? Not long ago, Taylor was involved in an accident and had been living in the hospital. While his life wasn't in danger, he was left with after effects that made walking difficult without a cane or assistance. We were planning to hire a home health aide, but since they wouldn't be available 24/7, there was a desire to have more hands on deck. Despite hearing that living together for caregiving often leads to trouble, my relationship with my in-laws has always been very positive, without any issues. They've even given me gifts from their travels and celebrated my birthday, showing their care for me regularly. So, we happily agreed to Cordelia's request to move in and assist with Taylor's care until our move. Cordelia then whispered something difficult to say. "Thank you. But there's one thing I need you to promise." Hearing this promise left me in shock. Since moving in with the in-laws, our relationship remained as good as ever, except for one thing: Vincent, Kendrick's brother, who was always a source of concern. Vincent, 2 years Kendrick's senior, was notably gifted, easily gaining admission to a prestigious university. Afterward, he secured a position at a well-known, leading corporation, but reportedly quit soon due to an inability to mesh with the workplace culture. For a time, he seemed keen on re-employment, but lately, he dismisses job opportunities, scoffing, "An elite like me shouldn't settle for such conditions." Currently, he sporadically works part-time jobs for leisure money while residing at his parents' home. Despite efforts to encourage his departure, Vincent's imposing nature often led to confrontations. Even after changing the locks, he would ambush the in-laws, forcefully enter the house, and replicate the keys to maintain his presence without concern. Living with someone like that, I knew wouldn't be easy, and indeed it was as I feared. In Vincent's eyes, Kendrick was the failure of a brother, and I was the incompetent DIL brought by the failure. Despite prior discussions about cohabiting for Taylor's care, Vincent demanded, "Hey Rachel, I'm starving. Isn't dinner ready yet? Why am I having fish? I was in the mood for meat today, you incompetent woman. The room's getting messy, clean it up. And don't touch the stuff on the shelves," making me handle nearly all his personal needs. Of course, I ignored most of Vincent's demands, but he would still consume meals prepared for Taylor or leave his trash in front of my room as he pleased. Even reluctantly caring for Vincent elicited no thanks, only a sense of entitlement. After returning from work on weekdays, I'd start on household chores and assist with Taylor's care, making for hectic days. Moreover, Vincent treated me like a servant, repeatedly boasting about his university and corporate experiences, taking up my time. I considered leaving multiple times, but convinced myself to endure it just for the 2 months until we moved to our new home. Since our stay was temporary, we hadn't unpacked much, simplifying the moving process. Now, we just awaited the completion of our house to transfer our belongings. One day, Vincent woke up past noon as usual, looked at the leftover lunch, and sneered at the poor meal before mockingly laughing at us. "Hey, incompetent woman, make sure my stuff is moved into the biggest room. Handle it carefully, don't you dare scratch anything. When are you moving, Vincent? Let me know the address, and I'll arrange the movers for you," I replied. At that, Vincent sighed deeply, berating me for a while for being useless and stupid. Then, he started accusing Kendrick of snooping through his computer and emails. That house seems decent enough, though living there is the true test. The location and layout seem good. Plus, with a supermarket nearby, Rachel can quickly get anything I need. He noted after apparently reviewing our new home's details, asserting his move with us. Of course, an elite like me will take the largest room. He sneered, prompting me to bite back a retort, but I held back. Smiling, I simply agreed and ended the conversation with Vincent. Behind me, Vincent's delusions about the new home continued, envisioning a scenario where he, the non-contributor, was supported by Kendrick and me working tirelessly from dawn to dusk. That night, I shared Vincent's behavior with Kendrick, Cordelia, and Taylor. "Rachel, do you remember the promise?" Cordelia asked. "Yes, of course. I've told Vincent we would pack his things," I replied, nodding solemnly to Cordelia, who then sighed deeply. On moving day, thanks to thorough preparation, our transition to the new home went smoothly without any hitches. With Tarek's help, we were able to finish unpacking earlier than planned on the day of the move. The fresh scent of the new construction, combined with the sophisticated design of the exterior, entrance, and the functional storage spaces throughout the rooms, made us truly feel the start of our new life, lifting our spirits. That night, Kendrick, Tarek, and I celebrated our new home and the future of our company, opening the champagne Tarek brought, and enjoyed ourselves until late into the night. The next morning, in our new home, I received a call from Vincent. Answering the phone with my head still foggy from the alcohol, Vincent angrily demanded, "Hey, what's the meaning of this? Why are my things still here?" Kendrick quickly took the phone from me and calmly explained, "We did exactly as you asked, placing your belongings in the largest room. Isn't that what you wanted?" Indeed, we did place Vincent's belongings in the largest room, just as he had instructed us to. That room was the living room of the family home where we had all lived together. Vincent, having been lied to about the moving day, went out as usual and returned in the morning to find the house empty. He was utterly confused, unable to grasp the situation. Interrupting his tirade of insults, Kendrick firmly informed him of the future of their parents' house. "Also, Vincent, you need to leave soon. Dad sold the house during the move, so you can't live there anymore." Vincent, stunned, began loudly calling for Taylor and Cordelia. However, Taylor had already moved into a care facility, and Cordelia had started living alone in a small apartment nearby, so no one was there. "Are you kidding me? Leaving me behind and doing whatever you please? You're the one joking, Vincent. Thinking you can just show up at your brother's place and have everyone take care of you is insane." Kendrick, having lost all admiration for Vincent, who was once considered elite, ended the call with a sigh, showing his frustration. He rejected all return calls and even blocked Vincent's number, finally freeing us from his burden. A week after moving, I received a call from a friend living near our old family home and took the opportunity to inquire about Vincent's current situation. Vincent, it seems, had refused to leave the family home, believing it impossible to sell a house with someone still living in it. The real estate company, brought in by Taylor to handle the sale, found itself at a loss with Vincent and issued eviction notices from both Taylor and the company. Only after such measures did Vincent finally accept the sale was real. He attempted to cancel the sale, but since the property belonged to Taylor, Vincent's protests were in vain, leading to repeated eviction notices from the real estate company, almost reaching a legal standoff before Vincent reluctantly left the house. Vincent, relying on an address he found snooping on Kendrick's computer, attempted to come to our new home but was shocked to find himself at a police station. Kendrick had anticipated Vincent might look through his computer and deliberately placed false information where it would easily be found. By not locking the computer, to avoid Vincent possibly destroying it, Kendrick left the nearest police station's address, along with some interior photos from a remodeling company, tricking Vincent completely. Vincent then headed to the care facility where Taylor was residing, but faced with the reality that Taylor, now a resident, couldn't possibly take care of him. Vincent was declared estranged face-to-face. With no way to reach Cordelia, Vincent was left in despair and began living in a cheap apartment. Initially hanging out with friends, Vincent was forced to start working part-time jobs as he now had to pay his rent and utility bills. His educational background and corporate experience quickly landed him jobs. But his discriminatory attitude and pride in his elite status didn't change, leading to swift resignations from each new job. Eventually, interviewers turned away from Vincent due to his extensive history of short-lived jobs, seeing him as problematic. Vincent finally realized that his prized educational background and corporate experience were of no value. When we met by chance at a supermarket, Vincent appeared thin and worn, struggling even for food, his clothes tattered. Upon seeing me, Vincent desperately clung to me, and I conveyed Cordelia's directive. We were told by Cordelia not to provide any assistance to you, Vincent. You're no longer considered a son, and even if you struggle with money or need food, we were asked not to help. Hearing this, Vincent collapsed to his knees. Before cohabiting, Cordelia had warned us about Vincent's unemployed status and arrogant behavior at home. Cordelia had hoped that seeing Kendrick's positive approach to his new venture might spark some competitiveness in Vincent. Resolved to disown Vincent if this attempt failed, the in-laws were prepared to cut ties with him during this move. We had intended to support Vincent towards independence, but that resolve shattered when we were treated as failures and incompetent from day one. Realizing he was truly abandoned by his entire family, Vincent broke down, begging me for money or food. I reiterated Cordelia's words, shook Vincent off, and drove away. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Vincent remained huddled and motionless. With a sigh, I thought of it as divine retribution for neglecting the in-laws who were willing to support him, and took a slightly longer route home. As for my husband and me, with Vincent gone, we were freed from the stress of being treated like servants and have been enjoying our new life in this new land. Kendrick and Tarek's company, though initially faced challenges during setup, gradually gained trust from those around us and is doing well. Kendrick, despite being busy, is happy working in the industry he loves alongside Tarek, which makes me happy as well. As the company is on track and expecting to get busier, I've decided to work part-time there to support Kendrick's endeavor. We keep in touch with the in-laws, occasionally visiting them for meals, maintaining a good relationship. We vowed to live each day without arrogance, grateful for the support from those around us, no matter how busy or difficult our situation may be. I am grateful to Kendrick, and Kendrick is grateful to me, as we happily live our daily lives.
At a wedding reception, the MC announces, Olivia would like to say a few words to everyone. Olivia takes the mic and says, Hey everyone, let me just say the bride's family is so poor, they'll be working until the end of their lives. I was stunned. I'm Emily, 31 years old. Currently engaged to Noah, who's the same age. I love Noah, but to be honest, I'm not so keen on Olivia. But my married friends tell me mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts are pretty much universal, so I guess it's inevitable. Still, I can't help but feel it's a bit much. My first impression of Olivia was terrible. This happened during a family meeting. The first thing she asked was, So, what did your parents do for a living? They're retired now, aren't they? What did they do before retiring? She didn't even say welcome or anything like that. She asked this before I even had a chance to sit down. Noah, why is your mom asking this before we've even sat down? Noah quickly tried to intervene, but Be quiet, Noah, she brushed him off. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, I answered while still standing. Well, they're still working. Then she barraged me with questions like, What? They're still working? So did they have you when they were really young? Did they drop out of school to have you? Were you a teen pregnancy? I don't think teen pregnancy is inherently bad, but her tone was so prickly it disappointed me. I answered honestly, we grow strawberries in greenhouses. We're farmers, so there's no such thing as retirement age for us. My dad is 62 and he's still going strong. She replies, What? 60 is a retirement age for most people, you know. Even James retired, but now he's a CEO. He'll probably work until he's 67 because he is the founder of Wilson Electronics. Mom, Noah interrupts her with a weary tone. However, Olivia points at me, still standing, and goes on a tirade. Listen, Noah, you don't get it. Your spouse will be with you for twice as long as you've lived, your 31 years. Over time, the gap where you two grow up will slowly eat away at you, Noah. Are you sure you want to be with someone from such a low-status family? Just then, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. James had returned. "I'm home." A voice came from the entrance, and then, "Ah, you've traveled far. Let's have some tea. Please have a seat." Olivia's demeanor changed in an instant. "Ah." I was at a loss for words. The transformation was as if she had been in a bad dream. That's how it felt. "I'm really sorry for making you uncomfortable." Noah apologized on our way home. Yeah. Truth be told, I wasn't feeling great either, so I couldn't say, "It's fine." But what was that all about? After James arrived, we all spent time pleasantly in the living room. I couldn't tell if the weird vibe before was the dream, or if the good times after James arrived were the dream. I felt confused and disoriented. It seemed my bewildered expression gave me away. You see, Mom has this pride about starting a successful business from scratch. But that's no reason to hurt you. "I'll have a stern talk with her," Noah said. I see. It became clear that Olivia's real nature was what we saw before James arrived. But Noah's stern words only fueled combative spirit. From then on, she became even more hostile towards me. And as we had several occasions to meet, like during wedding preparations. "Are you sure you're actually going through with this wedding, even though you are so poor?" Olivia would say to us every time we met. "We're not that poor," I managed to reply. "But you are definitely poorer than us," she retorted. "Absolutely. I don't know how much income Noah's family has, but I know they have a successful business." "Enough, Mom." Even Noah slammed his hand on the table in anger. "A marriage between the two people involved, isn't it? And your attitude, criticizing Emily's family behind Dad's back and trying to make her back out of the wedding, is just unbearable. It's really underhanded. You know what? If you hate the idea of our marriage that much, you don't have to come to the wedding. Dad said he has to miss it because of important overseas business dealings. So, how about both parents just don't attend?" This seemed to light a fire under Olivia. "We'll see about that wedding," she muttered, leaving her words hanging in the air. I had thought that her words were merely a case of sour grapes after being confronted head-on by Noah, but I was wrong. On the day of the wedding, it all erupted in the grand fashion. The ceremony went off without a hitch, transitioning into the wedding reception. I was in a pristine white dress. Noah was in a grey tuxedo. We both sheepishly complimented each other. "You look beautiful." "Noah, you look great too." We were enveloped in our own happiness. As we sat at the head table, the MC hurried over and whispered, "Olivia wants to make a speech." "What?" I looked up to see Olivia, already front and center, poised to speak. She stood tall. "I have something very important to address in front of you all," Olivia said confidently. Unable to think of a reason to object, we had no choice but to let her proceed. Then, microphone in hand, Olivia began. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Olivia, the groom's mother." The unexpected introduction from Olivia quieted the room for a moment. Unfazed, Olivia continued. As the wife of the founder of Wilson Electronics, I've diligently raised Noah to be the future CEO. However, he's ended up with this kind of bride. This kind of bride? I was stunned, frozen at the head table. Just moments ago, I was basking in the joy of being with a happy Noah and the blessings from everyone. Now, my inner warmth plummeted below freezing. Olivia probably intended that. I had played right into Olivia's hands. Then she added, I hesitated to bring this up at the ceremony, but for the sake of Noah's future, I'll say it. The bride comes from a poor family that will have to work until the end of their lives. What? What's this about? Noah raised his voice. It seemed Olivia had anticipated this reaction as well. Noah is the one to blame. He wouldn't listen to any of us who tried to stop this. I'm telling you about his wife's dark past now, so he'll finally see sense. And, Noah, you called me petty, remember? I tried to handle this delicately for your sake. But now, I'm done pulling my punches. Wake up, Noah, you pitiful man, seduced by a vixen. The voice raged through the microphone. A dark past? I was at a loss for words, my mind filled with despair. Up on the stage, I wondered how defeated my face must have looked. The bride who had been all smiles just moments ago. From the audience's perspective, I must have appeared pitiful. I had dressed up beautifully, stood beside Noah, and was truly happy. Why does all this have to be ruined by such nonsense? Surprisingly, the atmosphere in the venue was entirely contrary to my miserable feelings. Noah patted my shoulder and hugged me. Don't worry, Mom has really pushed me too far this time. The room went quieter still. I lifted my gaze, which had been lowered onto the table, and cautiously looked around the room. Was everyone as stunned by the outburst as I was, or did they actually see me through Olivia's alleged dark past? Neither was true. Everyone was hunched over, shoulders shaking. They were holding back laughter. And then a suppressed "huh" burst out from someone, and the room erupted in laughter. Everyone was doubling over, laughing uncontrollably. Olivia wore a baffled expression, going, "Huh? Huh?" I was also perplexed, staring blankly at the room. Who's poor, Olivia? You're the last person who should be laughing at anyone. Benjamin finally spoke, his face a mix of tears and laughter. Wow, talk about out of sight, out of mind, he added. What? Olivia looked astonished, genuinely clueless. Then Lucas spoke up, wiping away tears of laughter. We are talking about the same person who asked my parents for $200,000 when starting their business and borrowed another $20,000 each from us siblings. One by one, other family members joined in. I thought it was odd that only their family was asked for $200,000. But then I heard you yelling, "If I knew your son would be such a loser and get fired, I'd never have married him. So I guess it couldn't be helped," said another relative. Voices from Olivia's side of the family also chimed in. When you borrowed money from us, you promised to work until the end of my days. To work as if dancing? Who was that? It seemed like Olivia had been reminded of something. She couldn't find the words to argue back and looked down. Sure, I always knew James was an honorable guy. When he made his company a success, I knew part of it was due to his great character. So, when he paid me back with interest, I thought, I'm glad the money I lent could help. But hearing you talk on this stage about how I'm leveraging my parents' money, it made me think maybe you should pay them back in heaven. It seemed that was the truth. After all her talk demeaning me as poor, she herself had been demanding money. Now, it was my turn to look down and hold back laughter. May we say something? Amid the laughter, a person dressed in formal attire stood up with a commanding voice. A formal dress meant, yes, it was my mom. She walked assertively up to Olivia, crossed her arms, and exerted pressure with a glare. What do you mean by poor family? I meant exactly what I said. The focus had shifted, and Olivia seemed relieved. She took an aggressive stance toward my mom. You're still working, even though you've reached retirement age. That's what poor families do. That's why I hate farmers. So presumptuous. I could even see spit flying towards my mom from my seat. This time, my mom laughed right in Olivia's face. Olivia, you really crack me up. You look down on us as just farmers without even knowing what we do. She then pointed at my dad. Our strawberries often weigh over 2 ounces each. We're growing a $500 a berry variety called Emily Princess, and we challenge the Guinness World Records every year. Dad seemed oddly shy as he said, well. Then my mom threw down the gauntlet. What's so wrong with working till the end of your life? How about saying we're challenging world records till the end of our lives? My name is Emily. That variety of strawberry was named after me. What? Caught off guard by the scale of it all, Olivia looked dazed. Over 2 ounces a berry, you see. Mom uses her fingers to show the size. About 2 to 3 inches, easily 3 times the size of a regular strawberry. You've never had one, have you? I know you wanna say it, being all high and mighty. Olivia slumps down in her seat. Mom looks down at Olivia, snickering as if to mock her. Right after my mom shuts Olivia down, guess Noah was right. Olivia was looking down on us. Another voice echoes from a different table. What's that voice? It's a voice I recognize. Olivia looks at the table and her eyes start spinning again. Is Olivia's life over? That table is for the groom's friend, and the person standing there is James. The room buzzes. Amid the chatter, James starts to speak. I heard from Noah that Olivia opposed the marriage. Trash-talking Emily's family behind my back. Olivia thought she could do this because she always talks about the dignity of work, thinking she can't demean Emily or her family in front of me. Noah told me Olivia's comments during our planning meetings were underhanded. Olivia, you were doing an honorable job as a homemaker. I assumed you respected the concept of work and respected me as well. So I told Noah Olivia would never say such a thing. I managed to reschedule my business trip and told Noah that I could attend the wedding. Noah said I should sit at his friend's table. It would be a chance to engage with the younger generation, something I could leverage in my career. So I agreed. I kept my attendance a secret, but now I know Noah was right. It's being a homemaker a lifelong job. If you understood that, you'd never demean anyone for working till the end of their life. If you belittle someone's work, it means you don't take your job seriously. Olivia, you're fired from homemaking, and if you think you drew the short straw, then it's time to end this. I looked at Noah. James' name wasn't on the seating chart of the invitation. But just because it wasn't on the chart didn't mean there wasn't a seat for him. Noah nonchalantly said to me, Mom told me to enjoy the wedding. That was the day after Dad said he'd somehow make it to the wedding. I took precautions, it's common sense to prepare for a declaration of war. James moved Olivia aside with his hand as she slumped down. He grabbed the microphone from her and started speaking. Thanks to all of you, our company has grown significantly. We are forever grateful for this. To Emily's parents, who raised her to be the woman she is today, and for agreeing to have her marry my foolish son Noah, I offer my deepest gratitude. Olivia remained slumped over, trembling and curling up. Relatives, James and our parents, everyone was pointing fingers. It was indeed a situation where she was isolated on all sides. But, leaving Olivia aside, "Congratulations, Emily!" Applause erupted from everywhere. The atmosphere instantly switched to one of celebration. "Work until the end of my life? Sounds great! I'll dance till I drop. Dance until the end of time." The wedding reception ended as a lively party. In the end, James and Olivia separated. James' reason for the separation was this: he takes pride in his work. He doesn't see eye to eye with people who belittle the concept of working. And unless someone who behaved so rudely at the wedding was excluded from the family, it wouldn't be possible to apologize properly to my dad and mom. Olivia had whined about not wanting to work at her age close to the end of her life, but after discussions, they divorced. She reluctantly started working. She had belittled James by saying, "Anyone can work," showcasing her arrogant character. She couldn't keep a job. Noah told me she's still unemployed, and has even asked him for financial help, which he declined. He said he has cut ties with her. As for my dad and mom, their mega strawberry is just inches away from making it to the Guinness Book. The giant fruit was valued at $500, and even after reaching retirement age, they've built a lavish mansion paid in full. And we are living in the second lavish mansion. And Noah became the second-generation president of Wilson Electronics. Valuing the sanctity of work as experience in this wedding, Noah is doing well as a business leader. And now I'm pregnant with the third-generation president-to-be. With strictness and love, I want to raise our child to find joy in work and become a person everyone can respect, says Noah. He isn't even born yet, but settling on an educational approach is crucial. And I know that a child of this man will surely grow up to be such a person. Feels safe to be born. I rubbed my belly.
Acting all high and mighty over pocket change. Ugh. Those were the words thrown at me after I had arranged $30,000 for my eldest son and his wife's liver transplant. I couldn't believe she'd say something like this to me. And this was money they'd asked to borrow. The wife of the man getting the surgery seemed to revel in my reaction, smirking at me after spitting out those awful words. My patience quickly reached its limit. If this is who they are, then spending my money on them? I took my money back and walked out of the hospital room. I am Keely, a housewife who just turned 72 this spring. My husband passed away 3 years ago, and I've been living alone since then. My son Nick is 43 this year. He's married, has his own family, and is financially independent. I'm living quietly alone in the countryside, relying on my late husband's pension. I'm used to the rural life, but sometimes it gets a little lonely at this age. I've asked Nick to visit when he has time, but he's often too busy with work to make it. I even suggested that just his wife Ellie could visit, but she's also busy, she says. Ellie doesn't work. She's a stay-at-home wife. I would think she has time, but every time I reach out, she claims to be busy. Recently, I found out that Ellie's busy is an outright lie. My eldest son and his wife live in an apartment about a 10-minute walk from Ellie's family home. Apparently, Ellie spends most of her days at her family home. I even heard from Nick that she often stays overnight there. As a mother, I really want her to take proper care of Nick, her husband. But that single thought feels like it could escalate into a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. So I keep it to myself. Nick, you need to manage your wife better. I feel like Ellie has a bit of control over my son, and Nick is completely smitten with her. He seems to excuse everything she does. Even during New Year's, they don't visit, which makes me think Ellie is intentionally avoiding this place. I'm concerned, but I also don't want to stir up trouble between them. So I've decided to hold my tongue. At this time, I was still thinking that as long as I keep quiet, everything would be fine. This is how our distant relationship was until a sudden event changed everything. I heard that Ellie got sick and had to be hospitalized. It turns out her condition is serious, and she needs surgery, according to Nick. Although I don't know much about the illness, she apparently needs a liver transplant. Hearing liver transplant, my voice left me. I can't help but worry about how hard it must be for Ellie. Liver transplants aren't only expensive, but they also require a donor. I'll visit her. Planning to visit her as soon as the next day, I told Nick. However, he quickly said, "You don't have to come." He explained that she had just been admitted and wasn't settled yet. Rather, there's something I want to ask you. Nick said that first. It's been a long time since my son asked me for a favor. I listened, wondering what it was, and it turned out to be about the surgical expenses. Apparently, the liver transplant surgery, post-op treatment, and hospitalization will cost close to $30,000. Sure, $30,000 is a lot of money. However, I know that my son earns a better-than-average salary. On top of that, they don't have children. I assumed they would have saved up that much by now. You can afford it, can't you? You guys don't have any savings? We just bought a new apartment, so our savings are depleted. He hesitates as he says it. I had no idea they had moved into a new apartment. I was shocked to learn about this for the first time today. It's unbelievable that they changed their address and didn't even tell me, their own mother. What? You moved? Bought an apartment? Why am I hearing about this now? What were you thinking? I couldn't help but raise my voice. My son quickly says, "We've been busy, and I meant to tell you." But I think he deliberately kept it from me. Maybe he thought I'd visit if he told me they bought a new place. I'm not feeling great about this. And yet, turning down my son's request is also difficult. I let out a small sigh. Will $30,000 cover it? I have a nest egg from when my husband was still alive, and my survivor benefits are more than enough for me to live on alone. It's enough. Sorry, Mom. All right, I'll bring it over this weekend. At my words, Nick visibly relaxes. He must have been really desperate, but I wonder why he didn't consult with Ellie's parents first, given that he's always hanging out there. My son might not have wanted to consult his in-laws. I have various thoughts, but for now, I want Ellie to recover after the surgery. That's all I was genuinely thinking. Although it might sound presumptuous, I was thinking, if this $30,000 saves Ellie, I went to see my son and his wife for the first time in a long time over the weekend. I thought it best to bring the money directly to the hospital where Ellie is staying, so I arranged to meet Nick there. Even after informing him that I had arrived at the hospital, Nick took a while to show up. I waited for about 15 minutes. "Did you bring it?" That was the first thing he said when he finally appeared. I thought there would be more to say, but I guess the situation was just that urgent. As I handed over the bag containing $30,000, Nick snatched it from my hands. Quickly confirming its contents, he said, "You can go home now." What? I was taken aback. His attitude, essentially telling me to leave after handing over the money, was irritating, even for me. Even if he's worried about Ellie's condition, this is no excuse for such rudeness. I guess my displeasure showed up on my face. Nick looked at me and clicked his tongue. "What's the big deal? We're going through a lot here. Don't expect anything in return." Nick looked at me and clicked his tongue, yelling at me out of nowhere. I'd never been yelled at by my son before. He was always such an obedient child. I stared at him in disbelief. Ever since Ellie became his wife, it feels like his personality has changed. The Nick glaring at me with an intense expression was someone I didn't recognize. What's with this attitude toward your mother? Although I thought it was embarrassing to have a family argument in the hospital lobby, this was something I couldn't overlook. If I didn't correct my son here, I felt it would lead to something terrible. But it seemed like my anger didn't affect Nick at all. He snickered and turned his back on me. I thought about chasing after him, but feeling his complete rejection, I lost the will to do so. There was nothing more I could do. I decided to leave and headed for the exit. Just then, a woman said to me, "Oh, it's been a long time." Seeing her face, I snapped back to reality. It was Ellie's mother, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. Hurriedly, I bowed and said, "It's been a while." She was probably here to visit someone in the town hospital. I told Ellie's mother, "I came to visit, but can't find the room." She cheerfully said, "Well then, let's go together." Despite her daughter being in the hospital, she remained incredibly upbeat. The room Ellie was in turned out to be a private room. Apparently, she had insisted on having a private room. I was even more surprised it was a special room. It seemed extravagant, considering they were complaining about not having enough for the transplant and treatment costs. I knocked, and right away, Nick's voice answered. When Ellie's mother opened the door, I saw my son and his wife smiling warmly. A smile they never showed me, but had for Ellie's mother, making my heart ache just a bit. Ellie, sitting up in bed, noticed me standing behind her mother right away. Immediately, a frown formed on her face. "Oh, so your mother-in-law is here too, huh?" The careless way she looked at me was like I was something unpleasant. There's a bag of cash on the bedside table, the one I just gave to Nick. $30,000 is a lot of money. Leaving it there like that almost makes me dizzy. "Mom, you're still here? Haven't you taken care of everything already?" Nick spoke to me with a tone that was almost spitting the words out. I don't understand why I'm being treated this way. Ellie's mother doesn't seem too bothered by Nick's attitude. She just smiles. I bumped into Ellie's mother. I was about to leave, but she invited me to visit. Ignoring Nick's rude behavior, I responded. I thought it best to pretend not to notice and let it go. Encouraged by Ellie's mother, I sit in the round chair and start asking Ellie about her health and how she's feeling. Ellie, reluctantly perhaps, but unable to mistreat me in front of her mother, explains her medical condition. Turns out they found a donor for her liver transplant rather quickly. It's a cousin of Ellie's, apparently. If the transplant is successful, she'll recover her health. Enough already. Can you leave? My son clearly can't stand me being here. His leg shakes in what seems like frustration or anger. His attitude is getting to me. Your wife is sick, you know. It's natural for me to be concerned. Why are you acting this way? I brought what you asked for all the way here. Don't you think you owe me at least a thank you? At my words, Nick's face turns red. Ellie snickers at me from her bed, as if making fun of me. Acting all high and mighty over chump change. It's a turnoff to be lectured like this. I'm stunned by the words hurled at me from Ellie. Nick really has changed. Ellie's mother being here doesn't matter to him anymore. Chump change? $30,000 is chump change to you? You too couldn't come up with it, could you? How dare you insult me? And that attitude. Can't you do something about it? It's just rude. I can't help but stand up from my chair. The eldest son and his wife show no signs of being fazed. What kind of people are they? Really? It's beyond infuriating. It's baffling. Ellie's mother is just standing there, smiling and saying, "Oh dear." Maybe she's just clueless, but I think she's also a bit out of touch with reality. The eldest son and his wife continue to call me stingy and a penny pincher. If I just listen in silence, they'll say whatever they want, even digging up things from the past. I take a deep breath. I see. I get it. I was the one who was wrong. Nick stops hurling insults upon hearing my apology. However, his face still sports a smug, disdainful smile. Quickly, I reach behind Nick and grab the paper bag casually placed on the bedside table. It still contains the $30,000 I brought. Heavy to me, but clearly pocket change to them. Nick hastily tries to snatch the bag from me. Not anymore. But I've decided I can't hand it over. What are you doing? Give it back! That's our money! I glance at Nick, who's yelling at me, and carefully tuck the paper bag into my purse. Then I give them both a piercing look. Ellie, in her laid-back manner, says, "I can't have that surgery without that money, you know." At her words, Nick starts to panic. It really is clear she has the upper hand. Ellie's mother casually comments, "Well, that's a problem, isn't it? It's just money, right? Figure it out yourselves. Do you think I'm going to lend such a sum after being treated like this? I'm leaving." I declare to my son that I won't be lending the money. Ellie's mother then turns to my son, smiling. "What will you do? Your wife is in a tight spot." But her eyes aren't smiling. Nick's face pales in an instant. Seizing the moment, I rush out of the hospital room. I quickly jump into the elevator that had just arrived and make my way from the lobby to a taxi. I catch a glimpse of Nick running after me through the taxi's rearview mirror, but I don't care. Feeling utterly frustrated, I head back to my own home. Once home, I stare at the $30,000 I'd left on the table for a while. Then I replay today's events at the hospital in my head from start to finish. No matter how I look at it, I can't see where I went wrong. At one point, I even think about just blowing all of the $30,000 on some lavish spree. I decide to call my younger sister and her husband, who live nearby. "Hey, how about coming over for dinner tomorrow? Bring the grandkids and the nephews. I'm always alone here, so the more the merrier." My sister and her husband are thrilled at the invitation. They say they'll bring their son, his spouse, and the grandchildren. After hearing my sister's response, I quickly contact a high-end steak restaurant and a catering service. I apologize for the short notice and ask if they can accommodate. Both are more than happy to oblige. It's good to have a long-standing relationship with businesses that can be flexible when you need it. I've already requested kids' menus from the caterer, so the little ones can eat too. The next day is incredibly busy right from the morning. Thinking we'll need some sweets after dinner, I go out to buy cakes and donuts. While I'm at it, I also get gifts from my nephew's family and my sister's family, who frequently come to visit. And for my niece and nephew and sister and her husband, who always make time to visit, I prepared gifts for them as well. I buy gaming consoles for the kids, high-end fountain pens for my brother-in-law and nephew, and matching designer bags for my sister and my nephew's wife. Once everything is set, I feel like I really accomplished something. The whole ordeal with my son's liver transplant has completely slipped my mind. As I'm just waiting for everyone to arrive, I casually check my phone and see back-to-back calls from Nick and Ellie. I'm immediately annoyed, wondering what they could possibly want now. There are also text messages, so I check them. The first batch of texts are complaints about me not paying for the medical expenses. But as I read on, the messages turn into nothing but whining. By the end, they're downright begging. I sighed and called Nick on his cell phone. Surprisingly, he answered after just one ring. "Mom, why have you been ignoring my calls?" I was stunned to hear that as the first thing out of his mouth. "Really, Nick? You're the one who usually ignores my calls, you know." As we spoke, the events of yesterday flashed back into my mind, making it hard to contain my irritation. "When are you bringing me the $30,000? I'm in trouble here since you took it back yesterday." I was disappointed and saddened by my son's consistently aggressive attitude. I wondered when he'd changed so much from the sweet, considerate child he once was. While I remained silent, Nick started berating me again. By the second time, I found myself listening more calmly. Besides, the things Nick was saying sounded like childish complaints. All you do is call me stingy and say you're not fulfilling your role as a mother-in-law. None of it resonates with me. I felt indifferent just listening to him. I heard all that yesterday. Why don't you accept help from Ellie's parents instead? You're close with them, aren't you? Plus, Ellie isn't their biological daughter. I'm sure they'll help. I interrupted Nick's ongoing tirade. If I didn't, it seemed like it would never end. I was also becoming suspicious of Ellie's mother, who was just smiling in the hospital room yesterday. Think about my situation too. People will say I can't even afford my wife's treatment. You're the one who called it pocket change, right? And for the record, I used that money. There's hardly anything left. Nick was left speechless on the other end of the line. He reacted to the news that there was little money left. Why did he treat me like that when he's clearly desperate? I couldn't help but wonder. Just sort out the liver transplant fees on your own. Don't involve us. I made myself very clear. Please relay that to your wife as well. I cut off the call, feeling like I had just tossed out a parting shot. I didn't want my emotions to get the best of me. Even if he's rotten, he's still my son. As a parent, I want to help him. But his attitude yesterday was unforgivable. If both of them had apologized, maybe I would have reconsidered. But there was no apology at all. This makes it impossible to forgive them. Just after hanging up with Nick, I got a call from Ellie. I pick up the phone, ready to settle this once and for all. Mother-in-law, this is terrible. My life is on the line. Do you understand that? As soon as I pick up, her condescending tone irritates me. If her life is on the line, she should be more humble. I told Nick too. Instead of borrowing money from me, wouldn't it be simpler for your parents to help you out, Ellie? I tell Ellie the same thing I told Nick. Ellie scoffs at my suggestion. Seems like she really can't humble herself before others. Then she starts talking about how if I don't lend them $30,000, Nick will be in a bad position. Basically, she's saying she doesn't care if Nick becomes uncomfortable at her parents' house. Honestly, what she's saying almost feels like blackmail. Listen, Ellie, I'll make it clear today. I don't know why you're avoiding me. You didn't even tell us about moving to the new house, and you never visit. I don't feel like you're really part of our family. Ellie listens in silence. I don't want to say this, but can you really call yourself a daughter-in-law? You only reach out when it's convenient for you, and then you greet me with this disrespectful attitude. I don't want to hear your old-fashioned views on daughter-in-law and mother-in-law relationships right now. Just bring the money for the treatment, okay? Ellie has a short temper and gets very angry. She yelled at me over the phone. The angrier Ellie gets, the calmer I become. Raising your voice won't help. Besides, that money is already spent, and there's not much left. It may be pocket change to you, but it matters to me. Ellie gasps at the mention of the dwindling funds. I guess spouses do become alike when they spend a lot of time together. Then what should I do? We found a donor! All we need to do is make the payment! We're running out of time! Her last words were almost a scream. Hearing her, I felt no inclination to help. Figure it out yourselves. Ask your parents or something. They may lower their heads for you, even if I won't. I'll pray for a successful surgery from here. I hung up after saying that. Several more calls came in from both of them, but I ignored all. By evening, they seemed to give up, and the texts and calls ceased. Later, Ellie's father came to apologize to me. I was surprised by his sudden visit, but he was a sensible man, and apologized sincerely. After his apology, I agreed to lend the money for the treatment. Ellie and her mother seem to be extreme spendthrifts. Both spend money freely, while Nick is working non-stop. Lack of savings wasn't just due to the apartment purchase, it appears. They've promised to pay back the medical expenses gradually. They are also in debt to multiple other parties, and seem to be in a tight spot. But the surgery was successful, so I'll wait for them to get back on their feet and pay me back. Their relationship as a married couple seems to be on the rocks due to money issues. They have shared debts and can't afford a divorce, so they continue to live separately within the same home. Nick informed me they will divorce once the debts are paid off. I've decided to do a major renovation on the house where I now live alone. The suggestion came from the nephew and his wife who had invited me to that lavish dinner that day. Since then, they have visited me like real sons would, and the house is lively with the sound of kids on the weekends. Living alone doesn't feel lonely anymore, and I believe the $30,000 I spent that day was well worth it.
I'm Michelle. I usually work from home, but once a month I travel for work. Another exhausting trip. I'm off tomorrow, so I'm planning to unwind with a massage and then hit the sack. Just as I was thinking this and about to unlock my front door, for some reason, the chain lock is on the door. I live in a high-rise apartment downtown with my husband Ryan. We have been married for 3 years. I assumed he got home before me. Hey Ryan, you home, right? I called out to my husband Ryan. No answer from inside, but I hear the TV from the back room. He is definitely in there. Feeling certain, I call out louder. Ryan, it's me, Michelle. The chain lock is on, so could you unlock it? Suddenly, I hear heavy footsteps approach, and a face peers through the door gap. It's my mother-in-law. Would you quit yelling? You're disturbing the neighbors. What? Mother-in-law? Is there a problem if it's me? No, I just wasn't expecting you. Well, this is a good time to tell you need to leave this place. I'm stunned by her sudden declaration. More importantly, this is my apartment. Yes, I bought this high-rise apartment and I'm the one paying the mortgage and everything. Why would I have to leave? Confused, I managed to ask mother-in-law, why should I leave? You wouldn't get it, you homebody. Homebody? In short, this apartment now belongs to me. What? What do you mean? I changed the title to my name so you can't enter this room. Mother-in-law says this with a triumphant look. I'm speechless, but one thing's for sure, I'm not at fault here. There's no point in arguing when I'm already tired. It seems like we should discuss this calmly. I asked mother-in-law, so you really want me to leave? Yes, that's what I've been saying. Just go already. Understood. You're surprisingly agreeable. Arguing is a hassle. Excuse me. With that, I stepped back into the elevator. Come to think of it, mother-in-law has always had it out for me, like when I went to Ryan's family meeting. Mother-in-law bluntly told me, I can't live with you. Well, I never said I wanted to live with you either. As I replied, mother-in-law retorted as if I were a back-talking child. It doesn't matter what you think. I don't want to live with you. I see. If you have an issue with it, we can call off the engagement. What is she talking about? I thought to myself. Anyway, it's clear mother-in-law doesn't want to live with me. Well, that makes things simple. I get what you're saying, mother-in-law. So you're breaking up the engagement? Mother-in-law sneered. No, I meant we won't live together. Oh, okay then. Mother-in-law looked displeased. I was really ticked off. If you really want to cancel the engagement, just say you don't approve of the marriage, I thought. As if she heard my thoughts, mother-in-law shouted, Fine, I don't approve of the marriage. Why not? I also agree we shouldn't live together. She didn't seem to have a reason. Maybe she just likes complaining. Fortunately, father-in-law intervened and sorted things out. But mother-in-law continued to oppose our marriage, like when I brought up the age difference. Actually, I'm older than... As soon as I said that, mother-in-law became furious. An older wife? That's unthinkable. Will you really be submissive to your husband? The idea of a woman being submissive to a man is outdated. It's all about equality now. There is no rule that a wife should be submissive to her husband or that younger people should obey older ones. We're supposed to support each other in life. That's what modern marriage is all about. But it seems like mother-in-law doesn't see it that way. She thinks a wife should be younger and always follow her husband's lead. What an old-fashioned mindset she has. In any case, our perspectives were too different. My mother-in-law didn't like me, that much was clear. And so the tension between my mother-in-law and me continued to linger. How can I counteract this? After pondering, I chose to live in a high-rise condo. Ryan agreed to the arrangement provided I handle the mortgage. I knew it wasn't a small commitment financially speaking, but I wanted to send a clear message to my mother-in-law that cohabiting was off the table, and it worked. She stopped criticizing me, however. This only meant she stopped complaining about our living arrangements and marriage. She still didn't like me. So every once in a while, she would visit and start criticizing me, most annoyingly about household chores. In her mind, I was a stay-at-home wife who neglected housework. That's far from the truth. I'm a travel magazine writer. I even travel on site once a month for stories. But I spend the majority of my time in front of a computer, so if mother-in-law sees me, she assumes I'm not working. Our visits usually turn into arguments because of this. You have time to play, so do some housework. I am actually working right now. What? You're just messing around on your computer. No, I'm working. You're really bad at lying. Work is something you do at an office. At first, I would always argue that I was working, but as these confrontations became routine, they grew tiresome. I mean, we're not living together, so a bit of patience won't hurt. If I can just get through this now, the rest will sort itself out. Arguing is a waste of time, so I started brushing her off. My mother-in-law didn't seem to find this amusing. She started telling me, "You neither work nor do chores. You're lazy. Get out. You're in the way." Though she's not a permanent resident in my home, she still visits, so I've started ignoring her completely. It feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. However, one thing still concerns me. That's the relationship between Ryan and my mother-in-law. Ryan and his mother are close. That's not a bad thing, but they have stayed close even after Ryan and I got married. Of course, they're family, so I can't say they shouldn't be close, but there is a limit to everything. When I'm away on assignments, they meet secretly at our house. If they were open about it, it would be fine, but sneaking around makes me wonder if they're up to something. Are they talking behind my back? Are they plotting to kick me out? These dark thoughts have crossed my mind. Just the other day, I had a rare overseas business trip. I was heading to Southeast Asia, assigned by my editors to write an article targeting the holiday season. When I told Ryan about the trip, he said, "Lucky you, getting to travel overseas for work? It's not a vacation, it's for an assignment." "But you'll be touring tourist spots, right?" "Well, yes, but then it's almost like a vacation." Ryan seemed simply envious. Sure, an overseas trip can be fun if there's time, but usually the schedule is packed and there's hardly time to shop for souvenirs, so it's not all that glamorous. I tried explaining this to Ryan, but he didn't get it. "I wouldn't understand your world. Makes me realize how mundane my life is." He seemed genuinely envious, but that didn't ease my concerns. What if they're conspiring against me when I'm gone? What would I do in that situation? My mind raced with these thoughts. Feeling anxious, I wanted to consult someone. That's it. The lawyer our editorial department has on retainer might listen to my concerns. So I consulted with Lauren, a female lawyer who our department contracts with. And that's what's been happening. After listening, Lauren thought for a moment and said, "If anything happens, I'll handle it." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. However, it will be a separate fee from the department's contract." "That's no problem." And so I gained a powerful ally. Feeling reassured, I went on my business trip, and when I got back, I faced mother-in-law's new attitude. She was talking about changing the house title and telling me, the homeowner, to move out. Unbelievable! I had reached the end of my rope. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to give my mother-in-law a piece of my mind. Kicked out of my own home by my mother-in-law, I yelled this while alone in the elevator. Once out of the high-rise apartment, I immediately called Lauren. I explained what had happened. Lauren told me, "All right, let's sort this out tomorrow." "Can you do that?" "Yes, I had no plans tomorrow anyway." "Thank you so much." So it was settled. Lauren and I would confront my mother-in-law together. I stayed in a business hotel near the train station that night to prepare for the following day. After a good night's sleep, I met up with Lauren near the station. We went over our plans in detail at a nearby family restaurant. After that, I contacted someone, and then Lauren and I headed to my house. When I rang the doorbell, I heard my mother-in-law's voice. "Hello? Hello?" She popped her head out, visibly pleased. "Hello, mother-in-law." "Oh, I thought it was a delivery." "Too bad, we're coming in." No, you can't. You left on your own." "This is my house. If you refuse, I'll call the police right here." I said this as a final warning, but she didn't seem to care. She boldly told us, "The police? Go ahead and call them. Didn't I tell you that the house is in my name?" This is going nowhere, I thought, and made eye contact with Lauren. Lauren nodded and asked, "May we have a moment?" "What do you want?" "I'm Lauren, Michelle's attorney. I'm here at her request." "And why would an attorney come?" "It's a delicate matter, so perhaps inside would be best." "I refuse. I won't let strangers into my home." That should be my line. As I thought this, Lauren sighed and said, "Fine, let's let the neighbors hear about your crime." My mother-in-law's face changed color. Suddenly flustered, she said to me, "Michelle, make her stop talking." "That's not happening. All you have to do is let us in." "Ugh, fine, come in." Mother-in-law backed down, and I could finally return home, but let's be clear, this is just the beginning. Walking into the living room pumped up, I found Ryan laughing in front of the TV. Mom, where's the luggage? Ryan looks up. I'm back, Ryan. What, Michelle? What's with that reaction? Got something to hide? No, you said you left, so I'm just surprised is all. Fine, whatever. Ryan, come over here. I gestured and Ryan reluctantly got up and sat at the table. So here we were, sitting across from mother-in-law and her gang, and the conversation began. In the tense atmosphere, mother-in-law was the first to speak. Bold of you to come back home under these circumstances. Well, it's my house. As I retorted, mother-in-law's face turned sour. For the last time, it's my house now. The ownership's been transferred. Is that true? When I questioned her, mother-in-law treated me coldly. Of course, changing house ownership is easy. Guess you wouldn't know being a shut-in. Mother-in-law had a smug smile. When I looked at Lauren, she questioned mother-in-law. Earlier, you mentioned changing the house ownership. Are you sure about that? Don't act all high and mighty just because you're a lawyer. Stop making me repeat myself. Then who prepared the quitclaim deed? Deed? I did. Mother-in-law seemed a bit flustered. I quickly realized she was lying. But Lauren saw a different issue. In this case, the current owner, Michelle, would have to create and sign the deed. So you forged it? Forged? Yes. That's document forgery, and I will report you to the authorities. Wait a minute. That's not true. I had someone do the paperwork. Who? A lawyer I know. I had a hunch that this was a lie too, but for Lauren, whether it was a lie or not didn't seem to matter. Lauren kept the conversation going in a composed manner. So let's talk more about this lawyer later. Mother-in-law looked visibly relieved. However, this respite is short-lived. Lauren doesn't let up. Next, let's discuss the matter of the mortgage. The mortgage? Yes, the home loan, in simple terms, the remaining balance. I don't know anything about that. If there is an outstanding mortgage, changing the property title is a breach of contract. You would have to pay the remaining balance in full. You didn't know that? Well, you changed the property title without even knowing these details? No, it's not that. Michelle said she would give it to me. This is ridiculous. No one would give away a home they're living in. And we have only been living here for a few years with a mortgage still being paid off. Mother-in-law's claims makes no sense. But Lauren has a different angle. So you're saying the property was transferred to you? Yes, transferred. That's right. It was given to me. Mother-in-law brazenly declares this. Lauren then brings out a calculator. If it was transferred, you will need to pay federal taxes. Please provide the details. Federal taxes? Depending on the property value, it could be a substantial amount. Lauren flashes a knowing smile. Meanwhile, mother-in-law and Ryan exchange pale-faced glances. The next moment, mother-in-law changes her tune. No, that's not it. I bought it from Michelle. There are no federal taxes when you buy, right? Either way, you'll need to pay property taxes. Maybe you should consult your lawyer for specifics. A lawyer? Whether it was transferred or purchased, you will still need to pay taxes. Lauren is blunt about it. When mother-in-law and Ryan can't respond, Lauren asks, What will you do? They remain utterly silent. After a few awkward minutes, mother-in-law finally speaks. I apologize. I lied about changing the property title. So you were lying after all? I shout at mother-in-law, who shrinks back and says, No, I didn't mean to deceive. What did you mean then? Well, I was trying to cause a divorce. Mother-in-law began to explain why she had done all this. The story dates back to the day before I left for an overseas business trip. That day, mother-in-law had a petty argument with father-in-law. Tit for tat, the argument quickly escalated. Father-in-law shouted at mother-in-law, I'm sick of you always wasting money. What are you talking about? I'm sick of you not making enough money too. What did you say? I said go earn more money. That's it. I want a divorce. And just like that, the in-laws decided to divorce, but then mother-in-law had a moment of clarity. Even though she complained about father-in-law not making enough, they had been living comfortably on his income. If they divorced, she would have to live on her savings alone. That would definitely decrease her quality of life. I don't want that. How can I maintain my lifestyle? After much thought, she concluded that moving in with us was the answer. But when I got married, I made it clear we wouldn't live together. I can't go back on my word now. After weighing her options, she decided to kick me out and live just with Ryan. So Ryan, you agree with mother-in-law to kick me out? Ryan stammered. Mother-in-law prodded Ryan.
Come on, Ryan agreed, didn't he?
Well,
Speak clearly. Say you want a divorce.
despite mother-in-law's encouragement, Ryan couldn't bring himself to say it. I know why Ryan couldn't say it outright. If mother-in-law knew the reason, she would never suggest I divorce him. But after being treated this poorly, there's no way I could forgive them, so I brought up divorce first. Fine, let's get a divorce.
Oh, finally, Michelle and I agree on something.
See? Even mother-in-law says so. Let's use this opportunity to divorce. Ryan looked down and silently nodded. Thinking I had won, I looked at Lauren. Lauren pulled out the divorce papers from her bag and said, "Here are the divorce papers. I'll go over them, so please sign here." Okay. Ryan quietly responded. We signed the divorce papers right then and there. Continuing from the previous scenario, I watched with a smirk. Finally, Ryan finished signing the divorce papers and handed them over. Is this good enough? I confirmed the signature with Lauren. So, you are officially divorced now. Lauren placed the divorce papers into her bag. At that moment, mother-in-law raised her voice.
Now, Michelle is a stranger to us. Get out immediately.
Why should I? Smiling wickedly, mother-in-law said,
You initiated the divorce, so as compensation, I'll take this house.
But you were the one who first mentioned divorce, weren't you?
Huh? I don't know anything about that.
Mother-in-law feigned innocence, but it was so blatant it was almost refreshing. Regardless, I had no intention of paying her a dime, so I told her, "This all started because of your lie, mother-in-law. Let's talk about compensation."
No way, we're not paying you a single cent. Tell her, Ryan.
Mother-in-law nudges Ryan. Then Ryan, who had been silent, suddenly stands up. Yeah. Since the divorce is finalized, maybe I should say something. You're suddenly confident? I asked, and Ryan pulled out photos from his pocket and started ranting. Michelle, you said you were on a business trip overseas, but you were actually having an affair, weren't you? What? An affair? This is the evidence, this photo. Ryan slammed the photo onto the table with a thud. A photo? I looked at the photo puzzled. Indeed, I was in it, along with a photographer from the editorial department. Is this guy your lover? I have been following you. I saw you two getting cozy. You cheated. He's just a photographer from the editorial department. He was there to take photos. Liar, I saw it myself. Ryan insisted. I sighed. This might be more trouble than I thought. Just then, Lauren muttered, "This isn't proof of infidelity." What did you say? All these photos show that you are together. If you say you were doing an interview, there's no denying that. So what? Just being together is enough. It's cheating. In light of Ryan's words, I had reached the end of my rope. Slowly, I placed my laptop on the table and opened it so that both Ryan and my mother-in-law could see the screen. What's that? Ryan asked me. With an icy stare, I retorted, "I knew you were following me. I have pictures taken by a photographer to prove it." Immediately, I showed them the saved photos to my laptop. Ryan, arm in arm with another woman. Even more shocking, the location was the beach at the tourist spot we had visited for a report. What's this all about? I was stunned to find you in these pictures taken by the photographer while capturing landscapes. You in the middle of an affair. No, it's not what it looks like. She was just helping me tail you. Oh, so being together means an affair, right? Thinking he was putting me on the spot, Ryan had shot himself in the foot with his own words. He was left speechless, but I wasn't going to let it go that easily. You can't even hold down a job, yet you find the time to cheat? Expect a bill for damages. When I said that, my mother-in-law started to object.
It's your fault for being cheated on. Men who work for major corporations face a lot of temptations.
Oh, sure. A grocery store is a major corporation in its own right.
A grocery store?
Yes, Ryan works at a grocery store. He's just a part-time employee.
What? A major corporation, you said?
That was Ryan's big lie.
I can't believe it.
My mother-in-law was floored. By the way, I have invited that woman here as well. The three of you can sort this out. A few minutes later, the woman from the photo arrived at my house. In truth, I had arranged for a staff member to make contact with the woman under the guise of an interview. I had already arranged for her to come here before I even showed up by getting her contact details under the guise of thanking her. Needless to say, she and Ryan had quite the argument. She didn't even know that Ryan was married. He had told her I was his sister. Eventually, the police got involved and Ryan was forced to quit his part-time job. Last I heard, Ryan and his penniless mother had moved to an apartment they could barely afford with their small savings. They're scraping by with day-to-day jobs, but who knows how long that will last. Either way, it's none of my business anymore. As for me, I have divorced and I'm feeling light as a feather. For the foreseeable future, I'm focusing on my work and trying to forget about that cheating man.
Hey, what's going on? Where are you right now? Well, I just left the house, like you said. Is there a problem? My name is Emily. I'm a 35-year-old housewife living with my in-laws. My husband Max is on an overseas assignment, so it's just me at home with them. My father-in-law had a stroke last year, leaving him with a bit of paralysis on his left side. Despite that, he's actively working on his rehab and moving his body. As a result, it took some time, but he's recovered enough to handle most of his daily activities. Originally, my father-in-law made a name for himself as an investor. Before marrying Max, I used to work at a brokerage firm, so I really admire him. Living together has given us the chance to often discuss investments and assess management, and I think we've built a very good relationship. My mother-in-law, Helen, is a person who laughs softly and never engages in what people typically call bullying. She seems delighted watching father-in-law and me discuss financial matters. Emily, it's so good for your dad to have someone to talk to. He won't be bedridden, and it looks like we won't have to worry about dementia for a while. The way mother-in-law tenderly supports father-in-law is something I aspire to. I want Max and me to be a couple like them. I really feel that way. However, lately, I've noticed that mother-in-law seems to be struggling more as she sits on the sofa. We had her tested at the hospital and found that she's getting physically weaker. Her blood pressure is also a bit high, and the doctor advised her to take it easy. Mother-in-law, you've been holding down the fort here for so long. Please, take some time for yourself. I said that as I comforted her and took over the housework. But that's not fair to you, Emily. You have to take care of Dad, too. Father-in-law can manage his showers and using the bathroom on his own. All he needs is someone to accompany him on walks and doctor visits. Emily. At this point, I came up with a proposal to reassure my mother-in-law. How about I ask Mom to join Dad on his daily walks? It'll be like a daily walking date for the two of them. I can't believe you, Emily. Well, I guess we'll take you up on your offer until I'm feeling better. Leave it to me. And so, life with my parents-in-law continued peacefully. My only concern was my sister-in-law, Sophia. Sophia constantly throws passive-aggressive comments my way. So, Emily, still no kids? Max is overseas, and these things happen when they happen. Can't even give birth to an heir. What a waste. We'll try to meet your expectations once Max is back in the country. Don't get too comfortable. I also have inheritance rights to this family's assets. It's just like that. I could directly confront her, but it's exhausting, and I don't want to upset my parents-in-law. Ignoring her gracefully is where I show my skills. Maybe Sophia thinks I married into the family to inherit my wealthy father-in-law's assets. It's common to have a mother-in-law, father-in-law feud, but in my case, it's with my sister-in-law. One day, I was having tea with my in-laws on our sunny porch. "Emily, I have something to discuss with you." For the first time, mother-in-law looked serious. "Yes, mother-in-law, what is it?" "Actually, Sophia is going to give birth soon, and she wants to temporarily stay at her parents' house to get support from our family." "Oh, is it that time already? That's wonderful news." I sipped my tea as I responded. "Given that your father is unwell and have also been under the weather, making you handle the household chores, we're thinking of declining her request." "I agree. It wouldn't be fair to impose more on you, Emily." My father-in-law looked genuinely concerned as he spoke. "Oh, don't worry about that. I'm sure Sophia will be more comfortable at her parents' house. Besides, you two will be close by to watch over your grandchild. I'm happy to help out. Let's have Sophia come over." Upon hearing my nonchalant answer, my mother-in-law's face clouded even more. "Thank you, Emily. To be honest, we'd love to have Sophia here so we can see our grandchild up close. But the way she's been treating you is truly regrettable." "Your mother's not feeling her best these days either. In the end, it seems like the burden will fall on you, Emily, and that's concerning." My father-in-law also seemed to worry about me. "Sophia has made snide comments to me several times, but for the sake of my in-laws, I choose not to retaliate." This has apparently led to Sophia getting more audacious, in turn causing unnecessary worry for my in-laws. Did I mess up here? Once the baby arrives, Sophia might mellow down. "I'd love to see you two enjoy your grandchild." What I truly wanted to say was that I wouldn't be beaten by the likes of Sophia, but I just grinned and bore it. "If you say so, then maybe it's okay to invite Sophia. I promise to take care of her as much as I can." My mother-in-law finally showed a smile. My father-in-law also seemed relieved. At first, maybe it was because the baby would be born to their biological daughter, they wanted to be close to the experience. "Emily, we're truly sorry, and thank you." Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law bowed their heads. "Hey, no need to bow. Let's lift our spirits. Prepare a room for sister-in-law and go shopping." "I can't wait. Can I come along to choose some clothes and toys for the grandchild?" All three of us laughed, wrapping up the discussion. My stay at my in-laws while sister-in-law gave birth was likely going to be just a month or two. I thought I'd just have to avoid any sister-in-law drama during that short time. That's what I thought. Until that phone call from sister-in-law. My mother-in-law quickly conveyed her consent to sister-in-law, agreeing that she could stay with the family temporarily while she gave birth. After dinner, my phone rang. It was sister-in-law. "Hello, sister-in-law. How can I help you?" "Hey, Emily. I'm going to be staying at our parents' house for my upcoming childbirth." "Yes, mother-in-law told me earlier today." Sister-in-law was speaking loudly. Maybe she was in a good mood. My in-laws paused, realizing the call was from sister-in-law, just by the voice leaking from my phone. It was loud enough for them to hear even without a speaker. "So, can you get out?" "What?" I couldn't help but raise my voice in shock. My in-laws were equally surprised and jumped a little. "I don't even want to look at you. Just seeing you irritates me. Make sure you're out of the house by the time I get back." Sister-in-law, what are you talking about? Tell Mom and Dad you're going on an extended trip or visiting Max. I don't care. Just get out. I want to spend time with my family. Wait, hold on. Normally, I could easily dodge sister-in-law's barbs, but this time I was too shocked to find the right words. Once I'm back, you better come back too. You need to take care of Dad, who needs long-term care, and my weak mom. Sister-in-law! I won't take care of them. That's your job as the daughter-in-law. Be grateful I'm giving you a reason to stay in the house. That's awful. How can you say that about your own parents? Enraged by sister-in-law's cruel words, I couldn't help but shout at her. Ooh, scary. I'll just tell Dad and Mom that you yelled at their pregnant daughter. I clenched my mobile phone and tears started to fall. Using my parents only for the birth and then ignoring them? They're such wonderful, kind people. I couldn't hold back my tears of anger and frustration. Glancing at mother-in-law, I noticed her face was red with rage, tears gathering in her eyes. In that moment, my own sister-in-law told me she wouldn't take care of her family. The frustration was overwhelming. Just then, father-in-law tugged on my sleeve. When I turned around, father-in-law had a note in hand. It's okay. We have a plan. Just agree to what Sophia is saying for now and hang up the phone. I read the note, and father-in-law patted my arm with a reassuring smile. As if to calm my nerves, his touch was light. Seeing father-in-law's smile, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Though my insides were boiling with anger, I was able to regain my composure. Understood. When are you planning to come back? Maybe next Friday. Then I'll make arrangements to leave the house by that time. You should have just listened from the start. Dealing with a stubborn sister-in-law is so tiresome. I have to clean up after dinner, if you'll excuse me. As soon as I hung up the phone, mother-in-law broke down in tears and hugged me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. To have a daughter who'd say such horrible things, I'm so sorry. Mother-in-law's tears were flowing freely. I'm fine, mother-in-law. You must be the one feeling terrible after hearing all of that. I wasn't concerned about what sister-in-law had to say. I could silence her with logical arguments if need be. It's not a big deal. But it's hard to see my mother-in-law cry like this. I'm really very sorry. You've been very patient, my father-in-law sighed. Don't worry about me. What's your plan, though? I asked him, trying to comfort my mother-in-law. Well, turns out there's another person struggling with Sophia. We're planning to discipline her together. Another person having issues with Sophia? I was puzzled. Who else could be dealing with her? We've only got 10 days until Sophia comes home to have her baby and seek the family support. No time for tears. We need to start planning how to handle her. Yes, this is where you, Emily, will prove your worth. My mother-in-law wiped her tears and stood up. My worth? I had no idea what she meant. Shortly after, Evan, Sophia's husband, came to visit. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for Sophia's terrible behavior. Evan bowed to my parents-in-law and me as he entered. Emily, meet the other person who's been grappling with Sophia, my father-in-law said with a smile. Before joining this family, I worked in a brokerage firm, as did Evan. We knew each other professionally. I don't mind what she says about me, but I can't forgive her how she talks to you two. I vented my frustration about Sophia to my brother-in-law. He scratched his head and sighed. Look, there's no excuse for her. Even when I tried to correct her, she loses her temper. Her already spoiled nature has gotten worse with her pregnancy. My own daughter told Emily to leave while she stays here to give birth. Can you believe it? My mother-in-law was angrier than I had ever seen her. I get why you and my father-in-law get along. You're in the same line of work. It seemed fun. Sophia probably just couldn't stand it. Wait, so she's jealous because I get along with you and my mother-in-law? I was dumbfounded. She hurt her parents this much out of petty jealousy? And there's one more unbelievable thing. My brother-in-law began to talk about Sophia's actions. Are you kidding me? This makes no sense. I couldn't believe my ears. My hands were shaking from anger. I'm at a loss, too. I've even consulted with my father-in-law about what to do. My mother-in-law looked like she was throwing in the towel. At this point, I was fuming. She plans to rely on her parents' home like nothing happened. She should have been confronted head-on. In hindsight, I regretted my naivety. Father-in-law sighed, looking disappointed. Add this latest mess to the mix, and I'm done giving her any slack. She's my daughter, but enough is enough. Your conversations with father-in-law have finally paid off. My conversations with father-in-law? Wait a minute, you mean... Something clicked in my mind, recalling a discussion I'd had with father-in-law in the past. We might as well go all in. Get ready, Evan. Yes, father-in-law. Mother-in-law finally cracked a smile. All right, Emily, we've got a busy week to prepare everything. We're going to be busy. Absolutely, mother-in-law. Let's do this. I rolled up my sleeves and followed mother-in-law. The next Friday, as planned, sister-in-law returned home temporarily to seek family support for her childbirth. I wonder if that annoying woman finally left. Now I can just laze around here for a while. Maybe I should just move back home for good. Sister-in-law hummed as she walked onto the property. Then, right in front of the house, she dropped her bags and froze. What is this? What stood before her was, indeed, her parents' home. Well, it used to be their home. Now the gate was locked, the name plaque removed, and a for sale sign was prominently displayed. The windows were bare, and the house obviously looked abandoned. What's going on? Why is nobody here? Sister-in-law frantically called both father-in-law and mother-in-law, but neither answered. They'd had enough and blocked her number. Even social media was blocked. Why aren't Mom and Dad answering? Maybe she will... Sister-in-law seemed to get the idea to call me. Hello, sister-in-law, what's going on? I answered her desperate call, cool as a cucumber. Sister-in-law, anything but composed, started shouting right away. What's the meaning of this? My parents' house is for sale! She was loud enough that father-in-law and mother-in-law could probably hear without even needing speakerphone. I moved the phone away from my ear and replied, That house and the property have been sold. There's no place for you to temporarily stay while seeking family support for childbirth. Sold? What do you mean? We were told to leave by you, so we did. Don't joke with me. How can my parents' house be sold just because you left? Well, the house is in my name. Why keep it just for you? What are you talking about? You sold the house without telling my dad? You thief! I'll sue you! Seemingly forgetting she's pregnant, sister-in-law was yelling in a fit of rage. I let out an exaggerated sigh. Did you not hear what I said, sister-in-law? The house is in my name. So why is my parents' house in your name? That's insane! Because I bought it when father-in-law got discharged after his stroke. You bought it? Yes, father-in-law had become somewhat downhearted after recovering from a stroke. He'd lost confidence, having stepped away from his investments during the recuperation. That's when we started talking about restructuring assets. My husband can't act quickly. He's usually abroad for work. And if we left it up to selfish sister-in-law, she'd probably only take the assets that suited her. Father-in-law, how about we liquidate all assets into cash? That would make management easier. I suggested we convert all the assets to cash, making it easier for father-in-law to manage. That's when I purchased the family home, using savings from my single days and from my husband. By putting it in my name, I took on all the tedious procedures like property taxes. We let my parents-in-law continue to live there, so they could spend the rest of their lives in the home they loved. That was until sister-in-law messed it all up. What are you doing? Where are you? We left the house just like you asked. Anything else? Don't mess with me. Where are Mom and Dad? They'd never allow this. Sister-in-law still seems to think her parents are on her side. It's almost laughable how naive her thinking is. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are with me. We sold the house, but we've arranged another one. Then I'm coming there too. That's not possible. You're blocked by father-in-law and mother-in-law, remember? They don't want to see you. I say it coldly. Sister-in-law seems taken aback, especially when I mention being blocked. You may not have noticed, sister-in-law, but father-in-law and mother-in-law heard that phone call when you told me to leave. Sister-in-law's face visibly pales. Her earlier bravado instantly deflates. She clearly had no idea they'd heard that call. Listen, can you tell Mom and Dad it's a misunderstanding? I'm about to have a baby. I need help. It's going to be tough postpartum. Sister-in-law changes her tune, suddenly playing the victim. That's when I play my final card. Why not ask the guy you've been cheating with for help? How do you know about that? The unbelievable thing brother-in-law told me about was sister-in-law's affair. We knew because the timing of sister-in-law's pregnancy coincided with brother-in-law's long business trip. Brother-in-law already had screenshots and other evidence of the affair. Sister-in-law had planned for brother-in-law to raise the child she was expecting with her affair partner. I gotta tell you, brother-in-law is pretty angry too. Wouldn't be surprised if you get dumped, I say in a half-joking tone. Then the phone abruptly hangs up. She's probably scrambling to call brother-in-law right now. Brother-in-law has already expressed his intentions to divorce and seek alimony. My in-laws are cutting off communication with sister-in-law and moving to exclude her from any inheritance. We're leaving our estate in the hands of Max and Emily, they decided. Emily's involvement has made it so much easier. The estate is just money now. It really simplifies the management and paperwork, they add. Father-in-law had recorded the call that angered them from halfway through. With the evidence held by my in-laws and brother-in-law, sister-in-law lost both her family and her share of the inheritance. A month has passed since. Sister-in-law and her husband Evan are now divorced. She faced indisputable evidence of her affair and was hit with a hefty settlement in divorce court. Apparently, she left the home she shared with brother-in-law, pregnant belly and all. Word is she gave birth alone and quietly, and now lives in an old public housing unit, raising the child by herself. Struggling to care for the baby on her own, she receives help from no one. Why is nobody calling me? I'm tired. I'm lonely. I'm broke, she laments. Rumor has it, even her affair partner abandoned her just before the baby was born. She hasn't been able to establish paternity or receive child support. Sister-in-law ended up living on temporary assistance for needy families while paying off the alimony debt. She has to find a job and support herself before she can start repaying her debt. When will sister-in-law ever be debt-free? If she truly loved and valued the in-laws, even with a child from her affair, she wouldn't have ended up alone. The child is innocent and is the first grandchild for the in-laws. If sister-in-law can genuinely apologize for her mistakes, both we and the in-laws are open to helping her. Today, I'm having tea with the in-laws in our new home. Emily, what's your take on the Willowbrook Mart? Well, I still think they will rise. What's your opinion, father-in-law? I'm inclined to think they'll go up, but I can't be sure. Father-in-law was looking puzzled when mother-in-law peeked at the papers. Oh, talking about Willowbrook Mart. They're really popular right now for their new desserts, she said, laughing, and we both chuckled. Your mother-in-law seems to know more about the stores than we do. Having mother-in-law check out the stores of companies we're interested in investing in is a good research strategy. It's not about the money. I genuinely love these wonderful in-laws. Ever since becoming estranged from sister-in-law, I've been free from her influence. With my expertise in asset management, I've been able to alleviate the in-laws' concerns for their retirement. As I await my husband's return, my days are filled with peaceful smiles.